as always, just in case you're with us for the first time, I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, but we are always changing lives one mind at a time, by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We appreciate your presence. Thanks for being on. We give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all honor and praise to Him for my wife, the Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we thank you for those who help her business to be able to make sure that she supports the health of the diaspora that has become her business. So thank you so much for being on today. We appreciate you. Thank you for your patience, and we'll go ahead and stay on for a little bit as a reminder for those who are taking Herbalism 2. No Herbalism 2 class for this week. We'll pick back up next week. So just want to make sure we give a reminder for that. And thank you guys so much. So today we want to talk about Colonial Construct. This is not something that I came up with myself. I cannot remember the sister's name. However, I did duet the sister's video. So if you want to go back through the videos to see her name or whatever and watch her do the whole video, I just basically share her video. So if you want to just listen to the duet and hear what she's talking about, then I feel like it's great, 3-minute video or so, something like that. But tonight we want to talk about a Colonial Construct. And before we get too much deeper into this, let's say hello to everybody. Shalom, peace be upon everybody. By the way, hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, osayo, ohio, akwaba, etese. I'm trying to speak French, but that's not what I'm looking for. What am I looking for? Oh, Jambo, habari mimi ni Kofi, nina furaha kukutana na wewe. Hello once again, Atnai Kofi. Mashallah. Hopefully everybody's doing well. How you doing, Bounty? How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? How you doing, Brother Alton? How you doing, Big Ak? How you doing, Minister Morel? Sister Deborah, get in contact with you. Brother Vincent, I think it's, or Sister Marion, I think I saw you on there earlier. How you doing? Yeah, there you go. Taladi and everybody, R. Gray, Denise, thanks for listening in as always. Shop Van, Minister Select Morel. Appreciate everybody's presence today. So we want to talk about colonial constructs. And this was a great word, and I think this is proper word usage and something that I know I'm going to probably start using. And I would suggest for you to study what I'm talking about tonight, is you should study anything to see if it's something you should start using. And as we get into this, thank you to the moderators, the ministerial staff, SOC, if it's your first time with us, one time with many. If you agree, disagree, whatever the case might be, thanks for hanging out with us again today. So I wanted to talk about, I wanted to have some more conversation regarding the, this thing that we call social construct. But see, if you use the term social construct, I love what the sister said, because if you use the term, and how you doing there? If you use the term social construct, then what you're implying is that society in general, or all societies, are responsible for this, for whatever construct, right? And every construct is based off an interpretation. So we're trying to say that this construct that's there is based off of a societal construct, which we can say because it's which society we're talking about. However, I do like this term called colonial construct, and so I might, dabble in saying this and being a little more interchangeable, because a colonial construct, it means we have to put the burden of proof on a certain group directly. And Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Thank you. By the way, I'm all over the place trying to get in here, but yeah, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Peace be upon everybody, family. Thank you, Brother Vincent, for starting that and making sure that we were in the right place as far as Shabbat. May we enter into rest properly. So we had this weird process that happens where people just go social construct, because something is their society. People use that all the time. Why you keep using the term race? It's a social construct. And that's their way of saying that, hey, it's just made up and it just kind of came out of thin air, out of society. How you doing, Bucket the System? And that's how people use the term social construct. It just came out of nowhere. It's just something that came out of society. You don't have to think about it, talk about it. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? It's just a social construct. However, what if it's a colonial construct? because not everybody had this construct as far as, even if you want to get into terms that you want to try and put on everybody else, slavery, slave trade, all this, wars against each other, whatever, us not being as tight knit as a diaspora. And while I'll give you that, granted, we were not as tight as we needed to be, we were not as far apart as what people try to say either. However, that being said, let us also be honest about the fact that it was not the norm to say that because you were a woman that you could not rule. That's not our culture. It was not the norm to say that because you were dark skinned, you deserved to be a slave. That's not our norm. That's not the prism we looked at the world through. It was not. It was not and is not the norm for us to breed people for the sake of making sure that we have desired outcome and to make sure that people can work different types of jobs in the field and really not work, but job out, toil in the field as slaves. That was not our mindset. Is it not interesting? Have you guys ever even noticed that when it comes to the NFL, how you doing, Sister Deja? When it comes to the NFL is going to be full of a certain color group of people. When it comes to basketball, certain color people do certain color things. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed that? Right? Because people were bred. And what people will say is, oh, that's just a social construct. You're going too far. It's a social construct. But what if it's a colonial construct? Thanks for the love, right? What if it's a colonial construct? How you doing, babe? Thanks for being on. My wife is on, the Honorable Mind. Thanks for being on. Shabbat shalom to you. Shabbat shalom to everybody. What if it was not a social construct where it just popped up out of society? But what if this is a colonial construct? Something that was built by the colonizer, by the oppressor. Interesting conversation, right? And since we don't have the power to agree or change it, how could it be social? That in and of itself, obviously, right? It's something that we have to maintain and take care of, right? And look at, right? So think about that. What if it's a colonial construct we're dealing with? What if we the people, not meaning we the people, is not a social construct? Because if we the people is only for a certain group of people, then how can it be a societal construct unless you only deem certain people to be part of your society? Which means we still have to realize that the social construct was built to keep you in charge. It's not my construct, though. Therefore, what about this colonial construct? The people in the Americas live the way that they lived, or live the way that others tell us to live now before others came over here? Salah, right? Like, what about this thing? We call it a social construct, but it's not social. The people who wouldn't spend money with you, would you call them your society? The people who won't make sure that your children are taken care of, would you call that part of your society? The people who say that your women are bad because they're not submissive like their women, even though their women are basically are fighting against them themselves. Is that part of your society, or is that something that can cause you to be like this? See, if we realize that it's a colonial construct, now we have to start asking ourselves, what is the mind of the colonizer, right? And is the mind of the colonizer, is that something that should be something we partake in, or is it something that we should loose ourselves from, right? See, the social construct is something that says that, Kanye should shut up and Kyrie should shut up because they're trying to mess up the societal norm, but that's not our norm. That's the colonial construct. That's their norm, right? There was a I don't know if she's young, older, but there was a woman on here, and if you go look at her page, it was very mind altering. She has a lot of weird art, including stuff that has, babies being aborted, cross hanging out of vaginal regions, just wild stuff, right? But she came on and she was so busy trying to say, I'm part of the patriarchy. You're part of the patriarchy. You're patriarchal. You're the problem. You were the problem. You were the problem. You were the problem. You were the problem. And it was like, oh, hold up. Time out. In the midst of telling me that I'm the problem, why are you trying to compare me to the colonizer? Why are you saying that I have the mind of the colonizer when I speak against the colonizer, and I dare not treat my sister or my mother or my wife like the colonizer does? If we're both going through oppression, then why is it that you're saying that I'm the problem? Like, we fight each other rather than fight the actual oppressor. And in that sense, really, we have more Stockholm syndrome than many of us will ever admit to. We adhere to Stockholm syndrome by saying we should fight against it. Thanks for the love again, Brother Jermaine. Appreciate you. We are adhering to the social construct that we say that we don't want to be a part of because it's a colonizer's construct. Now, what is a colonizer supposed to do? See, a colonizer is supposed to have a colony. The colony is not necessarily the oppressor's land, but they are supposed to what? Colonize it so that it looks like their king. And as it looks like their king, what happens is the people who have been oppressed or colonized or even killed or hanging on by a thread, now what begins to happen? They begin to act like the one who oppresses them. How you doing, Minister Tam? Right? So we've been so busy talking about the societal construct or the social construct, but what about the colonial construct? What is a colony? What is a territory? What is a district? Yeah, y'all grew up in this stuff. What is a county? Why do your counties have to look different? Yet while they look different, they still have to look like the oppressor. Did you grow up in a state? A natural state, by the way of things, or did you grow up in a commonwealth? Did you grow up using royal terms and never thought about it because you have the mind of the oppressor? You are not in a societal construct, a social construct. You are actually in a colonizer's construct. What is the mind? What is the purpose of the colonizer? We use these terms just period. We like it. You know, they even took your term and they put it in a movie, and you put a bunch of money to be able to pay them back. When they called you, when they said colonizer. But what is a colonizer? Oh yeah, my wife. If you want to go down a rabbit hole real quick, maybe we'll discuss this one of these nights next week. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, look up the Commonwealth Games. By the way, if you don't know the mind of the oppressor and you think that the beast and all the stuff we're talking about is just out of thin air, take time out to look up the Commonwealth Games. It is actually the second biggest, coming together of everybody outside of the Olympics. Commonwealth Games. Many of you don't even know it exists. And see what they do with the Tower of Babel and the bull, right? This bull is fake version of Olive. And the shards, and acting like they're stabbing people, and acting like this is the star of the Satan that's coming down, just like he came down as a star from heaven. And I was celebrated. Right? This is the mind of the colonizer. The mind of the colonizer comes in and teaches you that you are not to be listened to, tells you to be Nicolaitan doctrine, or Nicolaitan deeds even tells you that you are supposed to be conquered, and then even comes behind you and tells you that you're not even who you say you are, Balaam doctrine. And if you speak up against it, how dare you? Punishment, buck breaking, right? That's what's happening with Kyrie. You spoke out too long. You telling the game. You giving the game up. What you think you're doing out here? How dare you? Right? Yeah, 10-meter tall bull of the woman rise, and the people worship during the ceremony, and she acts just like Ishtar. There you go, shoppers, and that's what happens, right? But they're gonna get them in line. I didn't even realize until today. I was listening to Jay, what's his face? It'd be on ESPN. Former point guard that played for Duke, hurt himself, was going to be a star for the Chicago Bulls and got in a motorcycle accident. I didn't realize till I was listening to him today that they were telling Kyrie, I knew he had to pay some fee. They talking about Kyrie had to pay before he could come back and play, they wanted him to pay $500,000 to be able to play a game. Now, they won't find the owners of teams that use the N-word that still are allowed to own the team and own the players. They won't find they won't find them they might find them 500,000, and they are billionaires. They said, Kyrie, you talked about the wrong stuff, and you mentioned stuff, and you said that we're not who we say that we are, not who the world and society and the actual society says that it is, right? Your society says, see, it's not about your society. It's about the colonial. It's not about the societal norm. It's not about social construct. It's about colonial construct. We constructed this thing properly, at least properly in our image. And when you go against the image, we got a problem with you. You got to pay. You got that man about to pay $500,000. Thanks for being part of the community, Corinthi, right? You want them to pay $500,000. $500,000. You see that, right? Because you got out of pocket. That's not because it's a social construct. This is because it's a colonial construct. When the slaves said, right, that's what you did. Willie Lynch, they told you. You went after the biggest and the strongest slave, and you pulled them apart. You went after the biggest and the strongest slave, and you pulled him apart in front of everybody. You tarred and feathered him. You put him on fire. You made sure he was naked so that he showed his loins to everybody. You made sure you embarrassed him. You even beat the other men to the point of death, but you didn't kill him. And you did it in front of the women and children. So nobody ever's going to get out of pocket again. And only sisters that are watching thinking that, hey, I should make sure I support a strong man. They'll say, nope, I need to make sure I protect my son from this. Shabbat shalom. How you doing, Sister Beverly? Right? Well, yeah, Brooklyn's not full of spiritual sensitivity, especially nowadays. There was a time where there was a little bit of the running around there. But you got to go back decades now, especially after you're dealing with all the change that's come through there too. I didn't live in Brooklyn, but I was like right on the outskirts. So, when I was a child at least. And it's definitely different if you try to go back to that area. It's definitely not the same. Right. However, once again, we got to be honest about this. Like, we're talking about a social construct. This is a colonial construct. See, social construct would mean that it's part of your society. It's something that's for you. It's something that it betters you. It helps you out. This is why we say all the time, you got to be careful when you talk about the Black community. Who are you talking about? Where are you talking about? See, because we'll go to the Black community, and when you come to the Black community, da 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 da. But if your community is the Black community, do you own your stores? I hear you, Shabbos. I hear you. Yeah, you're right. Right? If you go to these Black communities, do you own your stores anymore? Is there a mom and pop store? Or is there a great venue store? Like, is the Chick-fil-A in your area? There are some, but is the Chick-fil-A in your area that you go in to eat all the time? Is that Black owned? And even if it's Black owned, is it ultimately Black owned? How you doing, Sister Betty? Right, before you start talking about Black community, do you go to the Chinese corner store to make sure that you get your fried wings? you know? And do you say, hey, they do it just like Black folk do? Right? Do you have your own? I mean, that was a great point. Do you have your own police department? Do you police yourselves? There's places where police don't come by at all, except just to make sure that others from outside the community don't bother it. Do you have that same thing? How you doing, brother teacher? Right? Do you have your own gas that you pump at the gas station? Is it a gas? And when these people make this money, do they keep taking the money out of your city, or do they make sure that it's given right back? Yeah, all the mom and pop stores, they're in Arab marts, or they get replaced by Walmarts or Walgreens, CVS's. People's Drugs long since passed, but stuff like that. Like, we've been seeing this for a long time, right? And we become great at owning other people's or taking care of what other people own. Oh man, so and so, man, you should go to so and so store. They got a Black girl who's a manager. That just means she's managing somebody else's stuff. And even as the manager, right? She still has to do what? She has to act a certain way, look a certain way, hire a certain way. We're talking about this once again through a social construct, but this is not a social construct. This is not a society. It's not your society. This is a colonial construct. This is a colonial construct. Right. I love what Jay Williams, who was talking. I love what he had to say. He didn't say this on ESPN. He said it on his personal platform, and I can comprehend why, because he didn't want no smoke. But he was tired of it. You can see in his face, he's tired of talking about it. And he was saying, like, he was like, look at when Sarah Silverman said what she said about our people, right? And when she even dressed in blackface. Remember when Howard Stern said the N-word and just said, well, I said it as part of a skit? Heck, your boy Drake, for some of y'all that love Drake, Drizzy, don't forget that Drizzy was out there, dressed in blackface when he thought it was acceptable or whatever, when he was playing, the white card or whatever, and didn't know he was going to get in the hip hop game. Right? Don't forget those things. Right? Do not forget like that stuff was happening. Don't forget, all the stuff on television. This stuff has been set up all this time that you would have a colonial construct, not a social construct, a colonial, the colonizers construct, what they've constructed off of misinterpretation to get you to go ahead and sign away your rights in everything that you do. Right. And all these things. I remember when I forget his name. Was it the guy? Remember? Well, there were so many of them. There was a guy that was part of the Atlanta Braves. John Rocker was it? And then there was another, which sounds like a name that you would expect that from. There was another guy not too long ago. I mean, when I say not too long ago, might be a decade or so ago. But there was another guy, Philadelphia Eagles receiver, right, white receiver, who got in trouble or whatever. Was at a concert or something, and there was a baseball player too on top of that was at a concert or something, and he let some stuff fly, or was it an NHL person or whatever? We know the mismanagement of black players that are in the NHL. Yes, there are black players in the NHL and all that stuff, right? And when you see all that, you got to ask yourself, like, when all these players did whatever, did they have to go out and apologize? Did they have to make sure that, well, they apologized, but did they have to sit? Matter of fact, did they have to sit games out? Did they have to pay any $500,000 fine or anything like that? Did they even have to get sensitivity training? Oh, we've been around, train. We've been around. We've been cut back on here on this channel for a while, but we actually had to start another one because they took this one down for a while, and then they had to put it back up, but they didn't tell me they put it back up. So. But we've been around for a minute. We usually do our rising sessions at 8 a.m. sessions. Now we do it on Kofi_43. So, if you sign up for that, you'll see us in the risings. But we record everything on YouTube anyways. Right? But they'll make you apologize. They put Pac in prison. And one of the reasons they put Pac in prison, they said he was a danger to society. Not because of just a shooting thing. They said because of the music he was making. Right? Yeah, sensitivity training is a joke. But man, where's all this stuff? All these people that are menace to society because of what they're doing. Can Arnold Schwarzenegger have a movie where he shoots a bunch of people and nobody's gonna say nothing? Like which one is worse, right? Or is it, what's his name? The guy from House of Cards, Kevin Spades, Kevin something, whatever his name is, right? And he's a nice actor and everything. Some people would say he's one of the greatest actors to be out there. I like some of his movies and everything. Doesn't take away from the fact that Kevin Spacey, thank you. Doesn't take away from the fact he was messing with little boys. Now, where's his sensitivity training? They took his show away. They said you got to lay low for a little bit. They're hoping to bring him back. Louis C.K., he low key has already started doing comedy specials and stuff again. He don't really worry about it because he's already got enough money to where he'd be straight for the rest of his life. But Louis C.K., he out here in these streets making his run around and everything. And he literally, even though he did tell people what he was going to do, right? But he literally was whipping his phallus out and masturbating in the presence of women. And I believe some men as well, but in the presence of people and telling them straight up, and just did it in his room. Where's the sensitivity training? Where's the fine that he had to give to women? Yeah, all those people that went to Epstein Island, where's the sensitivity training? We know who went. We got to list names, whether they be black or white, whether they be Jewish or Israel or whatever. We got to list the names. Where's the sensitivity training? Because they don't care about that, right? Like this, you know how wild this is. This colonial construct. This is how you can tell that somebody really hit a nerve. You ready for this? Y'all ready for this? This is how you can really tell that somebody hit a nerve. And all this stuff that's happening, and all these items that are happening, all these things that are going down, this is how you can tell they hit a nerve. These corporations never move unless you mess with their money. But all of a sudden, you mess with the construct, which says who should be in charge of the money. And now Kyrie got to sit down. They didn't care. Matter of fact, they didn't care about, I know you think that everybody cared about Colin Kaepernick. They had Colin Kaepernick. They paid Colin Kaepernick off. and they made sure he was set for life, and they said he's not allowed to talk about it. And they made sure he still never came back to play for the NFL. They even set up that bogus session to act like he can come back, and then trying to make him look bad when they said, we're going to set you up. And he said, I don't like the parameters. Why can't you just come a little further down the road? And then all of a sudden they tried to say he messed everything up last minute on purpose. Like, no, right? He's gone. Even if they said tomorrow he could come back, he hasn't played in 5-6 years. He can't even come back if he wanted to. There's no way you're going to be out the NFL. Even though he's a mobile quarterback and they need you to be more mobile than ever nowadays, ain't no way he's coming back. Right? But at the end of the day, like, he's not allowed, right? He don't have to give up whatever the disclosed amount was that they gave. And then they tried to say that they only gave him $1 million or something to be able to shut up. That's not even true at all. He had to be paid. They paid him off, right? He got a little Nike contract. Nike kind of said, hey, we'll do business. But they only moved. All these companies that moved behind it, they moved because you wouldn't support them financially, or at least they thought you might not. But Kyrie said something, and guess what? And Kanye said something. That wasn't even going to affect their bottom dollar. That messed with the construct. That messed with the colonial construct. You can't attack the construct, right? It's not a social construct at all. Nobody had Kyrie just put the stuff out. Nobody even cared. Did y'all, like, for real? I didn't know that Kyrie put anything out. I didn't even know that the movie they were talking about existed. I knew of the content. However, I didn't know that the movie was even a creation or something that was made by creators. I had no clue, right? But certain people in certain positions said, "Oh no, no." They said, we're going to make sure that everybody knows that you said this, and we're going to make it a point to say, see, because we had Kanye, and then now here you come right after it. Before we get another K, if you will, right, and we get that K in reverse, they said we're going to stop this right now. They put it out there. Like, nobody cared about this. Why y'all care about? Watch this. Do you know how many people are actual? Even if you want to change what a Semitic person or Shemitic person is, which is what they're doing, but even if we want to change it and say, okay, y'all can be Shemitic for a second, right? Do you know how many people actually say hateful and spiteful things towards you? You know how many people walk around looking to kill Jewish people? They deserve a lot more of your attention, but you're not going to hear a thing about them. Kyrie, rather, he literally put a tweet out. And because he put the tweet out, they said, we're going to tear you up. Like, tonight in the United States, in New York, there's going to be somebody who is going to be beat down because they're Jewish. Statistics show. Just real talk. If we actually want to help these people, we can help them. Yeah, and he tweeted the link. And he said something like, y'all check this out, or y'all should check this out, or something. Put the link out. That's it. That's the most he did. Now, there's a whole bunch of people who we really care about our Jewish brethren. How you doing, Minister Nice? Right? If you really care about our Jewish brethren, then let's make sure that we stop them from actual oppression and actual hatred and actual people who are killing them for that. If you really cared about our Jewish brethren, United States Corporation, then why do I see your company names, your corporations, on train tracks going up to Auschwitz and other places? If you really cared about them, right? If you really cared about them, why don't you make sure that you hold them accountable for those of them, not all, but those who actually are part of this Zionist movement, right? If we really cared about them. Kyrie is the least of your worries if you actually cared about it, but you don't. It's like when people say, all lives matter or whatever. You care about Candace Owens, but how many people are going to be killed today? You're so busy talking about Chicago, Southside Chicago, this and that. Police officers are there allowing them to shoot each other. We have it on record. We got it on wax. They have laws in there that allow them. They say they'll allow them to have a shootout. They call it a duel. You're still allowed to have duels in the United States Corporation. If you really care. It says not a lie, real divisive, and Black people question Orthodox about Yi and Kyrie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't care. That's the problem. That's the mindset. If you really, it's like all this stuff y'all talk about Black women and the patriarchy and all this stuff. If you really cared, then Black women wouldn't have to start saying, hey, we're tired of feminism. Give us something called womenism. Right? And then that's not enough. So you got to go to the next level. intersectionality, and that's still not enough. So now you're just trying to say, well, we're feminists, but we're feminists that don't agree with feminists, right? Which is further division. If you really cared, you would listen to these sisters that are saying you don't treat us well. This is why, what's her face? The one who just played the what was it? Something King or whatever. It was a woman that played tribal leader, and she's been in a bunch of movies and stuff like that. Always crying like Viola Davis. Right, Viola Davis had to come out when everybody's talking about the feminist movement, and she came out. She said, "Man, you know how many times people have told me, that she said like my path is the same, if not better, than a whole bunch of people." She's like, I went to this college and I went to Juilliard and I put in this time and I did all these things and I've been on Broadway and I did these plays and I woman king, thank you, right, and did all this stuff. And she said and all that stuff. She said, I can't tell you how many times I get a phone call from somebody and saying, "Man, we need you to be in this movie. You're just like, you're the Black Meryl Streep. You're the Black Julia Roberts. You're the Black whomever." And she says, "Really? Well, would you pay me like it?" Right? She says, "Would you pay me like it? If you agree to that, would you pay me like it?" That's what she literally said. And this was at a feminist thing and they were bringing her there, but she said, I don't get treated like you guys do. Right? Because you're talking about a social construct. We're not in that society. She said, "I'm in a colonial construct." She said, "This thing is stacked against me." Right? She said, y'all aren't fighting for me. And people don't want to listen to that. And this is our sisters. The person you said you're fighting for. How you doing, Brother Stephen? This is our sister telling you that you're not fighting for me. You're busy talking about feminist movement. You're not fighting for me. It's a colonial construct. Ain't I a woman? So Sojourner Truth, 1851, was trying to tell you the same thing. You're not fighting for me. I'm a woman too. Why am I not a woman? Why did you not want me to show up today to speak? You said they don't pay Viola Davis that much money. Yeah, not in comparison to what her counterparts get, for sure. Everybody goes, "Oh man, it was so cool." That who was it? Was it Will Smith? Will Smith made sure that he said so and so was going to get paid this money, this and that, or whatever. Is he making sure all these sisters are getting so? Because I remember Aunt Bev, and I remember Aunt Bev. They call her crazy now. You know what? Why they labeled Aunt Bev crazy? If y'all don't know the story, Aunt Bev basically just came to him and said, "Look, you have the power, Will, to be able to make sure that we get paid our due. All of us, we should be able to get more money. Everybody wants it, but they won't say anything. You have the power to be able to say something. You're the star of the show." Will Smith said, "Oh, she crazy." Next thing you know, they got her off and they got a light skin out there, didn't they? They said, "We're going to get rid of the blackest one on there, the blackest woman on there, and we're going to put somebody else on there. And we're going to do it just like that. We're going to do it without thought process. We're going to do it so it wasn't even seamless, right?" Everybody sat there and was like, "What in the world happened?" Right? They didn't even announce it. They didn't talk about it. They just, all of a sudden you saw her on the episode. And they said, "We're going to do it with such ease that we're going to show you that if you even behind the scenes try to go to the person that we are telling that they need to live the way that we're telling them to live, as you even try to change the mindset of the Sambo, we'll get rid of it." Yeah, you said you couldn't stand the second Aunt Viv? I mean, Aunt Viv. I said Aunt Viv. Aunt Viv. Yeah. If you even mention, yeah, if you even mention something that goes against the colonial construct, you out. You out of here. If you even begin, don't fix your mouth. You know how your parents said that? Don't fix your mouth to say. If your mouth looks like it's forming anything that we would consider to be malicious, that means that we have this thing down so much that we believe we have the right to say we can read your mind. Boy, girl, don't say nothing. Interesting part about that is because of the colonial construct, we're not following our society norm, we follow theirs. So we say that to each other. Boy, if you don't go ahead and girl, if you don't hush your, you notice people don't call each other that in other cultures. We just think that that's something that's cool. Girl, please. Boy, bye. They don't say that nowhere else. They say that they copied off you. And the only reason you say that is because masters taught you that. Salah, right? We don't denigrate, but that's a colonial construct. We got to get out of the habit of thinking that this is a societal norm. If you would just get out of the social construct, if you would stop using race as a social construct, like my society didn't make that up, bruh. My society didn't do that. My society wasn't about oppressing. My society didn't say because my hair looks a certain way that I shouldn't touch it. I shouldn't grow it out. My society says that the way I came out the womb makes me powerful. In my society, I never chopped off the legs of somebody else and another that I might stand taller than them because I'm tall enough. If I have to chop off your legs, thank you for the love, Sister Stephen. If I have to chop off I've never seen that one before. If I have to chop off your legs and stand taller than you, then I was never tall in the first place. They keep talking about the social construct. It's not my society. It's not my society. It's a colonial construct. You colonized, you constructed it, you reinterpreted what was already there. Heck, you got people believing that 3 wise men found Yahshua when he was a baby. That's not even in your Bible. Right. It's not even in your Bible. 3 wise men showed up. Show me where it says that. But you got people believing it. Talking about the Big Bang. Big Bang came from Gaia. That's a colonial construct. You brought that over. That's not mine. Oh, you don't want to agree with the Big Bang? No, I don't. Well, it's scientific. Well, according to science, you're supposed to be able to map this thing out and prove it. Well, there is something as far as, observation. Well, we have observation too. We believe that from what we observe, it shows that the Most High created all. You said the concept of your language and everything you say can lead to lots of outcomes and paths to believe. Yeah, most certainly. That's why you should try and figure out who taught you how to speak. I agree. Right? Who taught you how to speak? Who wrote in law that being Black, Negro, colored, or African American is considered to be a fake person? Because language is a peculiar institution, is it not? Willie Lynch wrote that. He spoke that. Right? What is your language? Who are you from? Not where are you from? That's the 14th Amendment citizenship speaking. To mind control through the colonial construct? Yeah. There's a colonial construct. Well, it's only scientific if we say it's scientific. According to who? Like, you just getting the brain surgery. We were doing brain surgery, 5,000 years ago. Why should I go to you? You're starting to have women have C-sections just because they feel like it. Matter of fact, some places in South America is getting so bad that a lot of doctors are forgetting how to have natural birth. Think about that. Some doctors don't know how to just make sure that they can catch and help a woman along and make sure she gets the nutrients that are there. But we were doing that. We were doing C-sections when necessary in Uganda, what you call Uganda now. You found out about it in the late 1800s. You trying to tell me about the Carthaginian. The Carthaginian has to tell you that they're connected to the Israelite. Right? I'm just saying, like, we're so busy listening to people and we forget the colonial construct is constructed off of a fake, a total fallible, mindset. And even think about that, right? We've gone away from the midwife. You just think about the doctor. You know what the midwife was for, right? What the doula, her purpose is. Can't nobody comprehend and be empathetic during childbirth like another woman. Everything that's natural. Don't breastfeed. Everything that's natural. Cut the umbilical cord. Umbilical cord falls off on its own when the baby's finished being fed. But they'll cut off the umbilical cord and then feed you from the afterbirth. The baby's supposed to be fed until the afterbirth disconnects the umbilical cord, but they'll feed you what's supposed to feed your baby. That's a colonial construct. They now sitting up there, they told Black women to stop breastfeeding. Then they started breastfeeding. Then they started trying to wrap their babies like you've been wrapping your babies for millennia. And now here you are, oh yeah, now we breastfeed our babies and stuff like that or whatever. Now our sisters don't want to breastfeed. What's going on? Like we got to comprehend this. Somebody came over with a mindset to colonize. And the first thing that they're going to send is always going to be a missionary. Even the reason why they call that sexual position the missionary position, because they came and they colonized it. They said the only way that we think that their Jesus would be, the only way that they think that their Jesus would be satisfied even with your sex is that it has to look like it's a certain position. They want to colonize everything. If they'll colonize the bedroom, what else won't they colonize? I mean, heck, they bred folk. We always think about that you had to come from Africa. Some of you came from Africa. Some of you came from other places. A lot of you were already here and were being bred. And those who weren't already here and being bred, there's proof that there were tons of slave ships. And by the way, I want, even when people say there's no proof and there's no evidence, I just want to put this out there. Like if you ever been on a cruise ship, somebody says, well, a cruise ship is much better than a regular ship, but just hear me out. If you've ever been on a cruise ship and you've been on a small cruise ship, that basically means that you got small rooms, right? But you make it fine and you still can go, you can get something to eat, right? If you think that you can't put somebody on a ship, and if you think that every ship that got on, see, we don't comprehend how the slave trade worked. You think that they had ships and every ship went straight from Africa to North Carolina or South Carolina or Massachusetts or whatever. No. There's stops along the way. Yeah, Taino love, right? There's stops along the way. And you can find evidence of ships in the water, and you can find evidence of ships that have been used to be able to build other things, and you can find evidence of manifestos, and you can find evidence of people who were Jewish who said that they had Hebrew slaves, amongst other different types of people that were enslaved as well. Because not everybody Black is automatically part of the same tribe, right? But we're not going to be honest about that. Because the colonial construct is here to tell you what somebody else was so busy trying to say earlier this rising. Well, you know that there were Black people who sold Black people into slavery. And the colonial construct says we don't even have to take accountability for our part. Hello, somebody. Colonial construct says we do not even have to take accountability for our part. Well, not even destroying that. Like, how many people are aware that the fact, we talked about this a little bit before, but how many people are aware of the fact that the Amazon, right? You think of the Amazon River, that's a man-made river, y'all. How many of y'all know that the biggest pyramid on Earth is in South America, right? The biggest one in North America is in Illinois, but the biggest one on Earth is in South America. And that biggest one in South America, it actually has like 3 or 4 pyramids inside of it. How many of you knew that they had soil in South America that they made up because the soil there wasn't rich enough to be able to grow certain things, and they actually would make up land. They would actually put land together like they did with Dubai. They would put it together. Dubai is actually kind of starting to deconstruct. They're trying to figure out how to keep it together. But when you went to other places, like there still is still there to this day. And they had soil that was there that they created. They created a soil to be able to put with the soil that wasn't that great. And still to this day, when they grab it and put it with soil that's not that great, they're still able to grow things. Yeah, Amazon River is man-made. Amazon River, when you do some research, you'll discover that there's a whole bunch of cities that used to be on there. A lot of them the size of England. Now, don't quote me on the fact of whether that's the size of England today or the size of England back then. But some of them could have gotten up to the size of England today. But I don't want to act like every single city. But you'll find that there's cities that are under there all around. And when you had these people that came through, these conquistadors and others who came through, and the Portuguese and others who came through, right? Like they didn't care about that. So they killed people off, or disease killed people off, and different things or whatever. You said Egypt conquered the world not too long ago. Well, if you're talking about Kemet, then kind of, sort of. But you act like Kemet made slaves of the world. And made slaves of the world just because of chattel slavery, right? Because Kemet is different than Egypt. If you're talking about Egypt, you got to start talking about the Greeks. That's Cleopatra. You got to start talking about, Mark Antony and them, and that was after Julius Caesar, and then Romans who finally said enough is enough when they felt like Antony was wilding out. They killed him, and then they came for Cleopatra, and she killed herself, right? And different things like that, But yeah, we can talk about there's different people who've done many different things. But once again, colonial stuff tells us, hey, let's do whatever we can to take the mind off of chattel slavery based upon what color you are. That's not everybody's construct. That's not a social construct. That's a colonial construct. Even people of Kemet, right? If you want to say that there was such thing as a white person, because what we call white today is not what people thought of back then. Greeks were not white. Romans were not necessarily white. By the social construct, right? Or the colonial construct. But if we want to go by that, sure. Okay. They could have had slaves of many different ilk or whatever, but you weren't a slave for the rest of your life just because you were born a color. Right? Like that's new. That's that new, right? That's that Pope 1452 Doctrine of Discovery piece that they made official in 1493. Right? That's that times, and half a time biblical context that talks about 1,260 years. It takes you from the Justinian decree of 538 AC is going to take you all the way over to 1798 AC. Then the head is killed off, but it says the head comes back on the beast when the Pope comes back into fruition. And he right back where he left off, right there with that whole obelisk. Oh, by the way, same obelisk you got in Memphis. Oh, wait a minute, same obelisk you got in Washington, D.C. Oh, wait, same obelisk that you got all over a lot of Western society. You said the islands in Arizona, what Americans call Kemet now, is what I eat. No, I mean, if that's what you're going by, that's been a new thing that's been popping up too. But here's the deal. The originals in Kemet, but just like people did when they started like how many Alexandrias are there? There's an Alexandria, Virginia. There's an Alexandria in Egypt. There's an Alexandria in India. There's an Alexandria in Greece, right? Well, if you do the same thing with Kemet, don't forget that Kemetic people traveled the world too, right? There are pharaohs that were buried with the coca plant. They had cocaine inside them. Cocaine is native to the Americas, right? So Kemetic people were traveling long time ago, which means that if they went different places, they named these places after where they came from. And there was mixing and matching of culture, right? Matter of fact, I'm forgetting forgive me for forgetting the name of the netcher right now, but the netcher that basically is it Ra, Amun Ra, the one that normally is put as a dog. If you actually know what that dog looks like a native dog of the Americas. They traveled over there. Don't forget about the Olmec She. What did some of the Olmec She statues look like? And they told you they mix and match. Don't forget that Christopher Columbus, when he sails the ocean blue in 1492, that was after he had been given permission to go ahead, Doctrine of Discovery, the Pope gave him permission to make slaves in 1491. Don't forget that when that happened, he tells you in his journal in 1482, he was traveling with African sailors, and he knew that there was a land of Asheroth, according to 2nd Esdras chapter 13, verses 40 through 45. That's why Queen Isabel and the Pope at the time allowed him to go over, and he took a Hebrew interpreter over with him. And when they went over there, they found that they had guanine weapons or West African weapons. And they told them, yeah, we've been trading back and forth. And they were able to speak through the Hebrew dialects. Even though they were different, they were similar enough to be able to go ahead and have those things come together. Right? So we do this weird thing where it's like these people had no clue about each other because that's what you were told. You were told Christopher Columbus went on some trip to be able to find India. And the reality is that they already knew where India was. Greece knew about China. You hear what I'm saying? The Greek Empire knew about China. Romans in China have writings about each other and what they observed and how wild some of this stuff was. They talk about some of the things they traded. They knew as far as what Japan was. You think they didn't know where India was? He lied to the men. Now, some of the people, they were what? They were ignorant. They were untrained. They were not taught. Right? Been doing well. How you doing? Right? They were not taught. So since they weren't taught, since they weren't trained, since they weren't used, well, guess what happened? Right? But we're doing this weird thing where it's like, oh yeah, or we'll do this thing where Mormons have said that they want to call this place this and this place this. So they're saying that this is Israel. These are the Mormons that said that the Israelites were white. Joseph Smith said that the Israelites were not Black, they were not African, they were not what people said. He said his correction to the Bible was to make sure that people comprehended that you could be white and delightsome. Do you know what that means? Do you hear what I'm saying? Do you know what that means to be white and delightsome? Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever heard of that? To be white and delightsome? That meant that everything that was supposed to be in another place, he said you had to be white to be able to have it. And it had to be where he lived over in Utah, where they were mismanaging their own women, right? And they were killing off their own sons or kicking them to the curb because they didn't want their sons to mess with their wives because they were so into incest that they felt that their own sons might try to come up on the throne. I'm sorry, you said Suez Canal is man-made. Yeah, a lot of stuff, right? And how you doing to the other brother TJ over in Canada? Thanks for joining us, right? Like this is stuff that we know happened. Like this is stuff that we know happened. Oh yeah, church tried to convince a British Israel. Yeah, stuff like that. Like we know this happened. Joseph Smith told you about the Mormon Jesus. He said if you fought for the Mormon Jesus, him and the devil actually had decent arguments. So they had a fight, and if you fought with the Mormon Jesus and won, you became white. If you fought with the devil and lost, you have no body and you're a fallen angel. You have no body that you have to basically possess people to be on earth. And then he said, if you're somebody who was a coward and didn't fight for either side, he said, well, you just happen to be somebody of color. That same person is who started telling people that Utah is named this and this is named this and this is blah, blah, blah. They named it because they said they were the Israelites. That wasn't original. Now, if you want to get into some original stuff, though, that might really blow your mind, watch this. I'm Tsalagi, right? You call it Cherokee. Do you know that original name of us as a people actually means the people of Yah? And do you know that our cousins, the Choctaw people, their original name actually translates to the people of the skirts? Now, if you want to talk about some mixing and matching and realizing how much travel we had, now let's go there. That's a conversation for you. Right. Let's talk about the fact that they were finding in the Bering Strait and in Cherokee country artifacts, or what you call Hebrew artifacts, but Afla artifact written in the hands of Afla people. And they didn't know what it was because they weren't even willing to just think, what if these people were Hebrew? They brought in some people who had Israelite training and knew about Paleo Hebrew. And when they brought them to the Smithsonian, they say, oh yeah, that's just Hebrew writing. And when they broke it down, they actually found out that it was basically somebody making sure that they were writing out the 10 Commandments for generations to come. See, the social construct of our people was that we were Israel already. Right? The colonial construct says, how dare you, Kyrie? See the difference? The social construct, that's yours. That's your society. The colonial construct says it's not for you. You said that they speak first Hebrew in the South. I don't know. What's the point of the question? Did they speak? I'm sorry, I don't comprehend I know you only got a little bit. I'm trying to get what you're saying. Did they speak first Hebrew in the South? Are you trying to say, is that the first language that they spoke? May not have been. But they definitely spoke a dialect of it, and we know that it reached all the way down to Hispaniola. That's Haiti, and that's what you now call Dominicano people. And we know that they spoke it a little bit in South America too. And we know that they were already trading. Going back to this stuff, we don't want to act like it's not. But whether you want to talk about it is because they were in one land before everything split up, and Pangea effect, and it's a lot closer than what you're trying to make it. A lot of scientists try to make it, or whatever. You gotta be honest and come back. You said the original Hebrew in South different in Africa. I mean, when you're talking about the origins of things or whatever, I mean, it depends on where you're talking about the people scattered. If you want to get into the dialect, then we can get into the dialect. But where the people scattered was different. By the way, the people were scattering before, 70 AC, right? Like you had people that the Bible talks about that were already all the way over in West Africa. That's my tribe, right? Not just Israelite tribe of Judah. I'm talking about literally my tribe, like Shwit, right? So we are already over there. Right, you got people in obviously Cush. Don't forget that Cushitic people were married into Israel even at the time of Moses. Don't forget that Kemetic people were married back going on to the time of Joseph, and then of course married in with Solomon as well. And others. Don't forget about the 40 years that people were together. Don't forget that there were Kemetic people that traveled all over the place. Don't forget that Kemet and Cush used to come up and fight when they fought against different people trying to take over Israel way before the Romans. So when we're talking about Israel, we're having this conversation as if Israel never did anything. Don't forget the Carthaginians tell you that they were Phoenicians. The Phoenicians tell you that they are Canaanites. The Canaanites tell you that they're mixed with Israel. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we agree with each other. Yeah, I'm just saying, like it's a lot to it, and you know more than others, right? But it's a lot. It's a lot to it. You said the Gullah people of Carolina. Yeah, they have no problem. Matter of fact, there was a live I was on not too long ago, and the sister was making sure she was talking about her Gullah heritage because I was talking about at one point I want to go and talk to the chieftain. And she was talking about all the stuff as far as like, yeah, they still do this. They have certain things, and there's certain things that are, certain certain customs and different things like that, things they don't mix, or certain ways that they create their clothes and their baskets and all types of stuff still. Into the media control behavior so that all the kings and his swords, that's all barbaric. Just so insane the world stood idly while chaos and delirium ran amok. Yeah, but once again, if you're in the world, if you're in that system, that's why we got to be in the system, but not of it. When you go into the system, be ready to deal with it, but never be of it. Never have a mindset that says this is all there is. Never have a thought process that says this is what I want to be part of. Right? Like we got to be careful. Right? Like we have to be careful. We have to be careful to not to allow somebody to get you to believe that who you are is not necessary, or that who you are doesn't really get to be brought to the table. That's the biggest part of a lot of this stuff is we're having people that are just busy trying to tell you, oh no, that part of who you are, like don't worry about that. That's pay no attention to what's hidden behind the curtain. But once again, there's a difference between the social construct and the colonial construct. That being said, we went a little long tonight. Since there's no class tonight, thank y'all for being on. Appreciate you. As a reminder, tomorrow we're going to be on Kofi_43 on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, we'll just be on here. We'll do our thing from about 8 a.m. Eastern till about 9:30, 9:45 a.m. Eastern New York time. Then we'll give a little break. Those who know about the podcast and want to be part of that live, Minister Shante will be teaching on there tomorrow again at 10 a.m. Eastern New York time. No SOC meeting tomorrow. We'll have that the Saturday after. So not tomorrow, no SOC tomorrow, meeting tomorrow. But those who are brethren, we do have our men's meeting. So we will be having our men's meeting on Zoom. So those of you brothers who want to participate, we hope to hear from you. We hope to hear some great things, some big things. And we appreciate you. So thank you all again. I appreciate the King and Queen in each and every one of you. Even if you're not living inside that kingdom or queendom yet, I appreciate the potential king and queen in each and every one of you. Whether this is the first time you've heard this, whether we're planting the seed or you've had something watered today, we praise Yah that he's going to come and he's going to give the increase. We ask that you study this word and meditate on it so you can not just be a hearer, you can be able to do it simultaneously. And we give all praise and honor to the Most High once again. And we praise him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And thank you so much for supporting her business, which is making sure that the health of the diaspora is her business. And we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for helping out. Coat drive, stuff like that. We appreciate you so much. And don't forget, sisters, December 19th, brothers too, you're invited, of course, but December 19th, sisters is going to be the women in red. So we're looking forward to doing that. Continue to pray for everybody. We're praying for all those families who've lost somebody, those who are going through. But we're so excited. This is our year, once again, of living inside of that which we have pursued. So we are going to #finish strong inside of that. And we look forward to making that happen over and over and over again, so that we can get ready to start going into next year, where we're going to look beyond what we see. And therefore, just like we did at convocation, but we're going to add a little more to it. We're going to look beyond what we see, which means we're going to press and strain. So we thank you. We honor you for being on once again. Don't forget our affirmations, Romans 8:1. Don't worry about being condemned, because you follow after the Spirit. Romans 8:11, the same Spirit that rose Yahshua from the dead, that dwells within you and will quicken your mortal body. Romans 8:18, the suffering of this present time is not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed. Romans 8:19, that the creature is waiting on us, the sons of Yahshua, the sons of Elohim, to manifest themselves, that they might have an example. Romans 8:28, therefore all things are constitutional, working together for your benefit, for those of you who act accordingly or love Elohim and are called according to his purpose. And then a little extra bonus on it, Romans chapter 8, verse 37, we are more than conquerors. Don't live as a conqueror. Realize you are more than a conqueror. It's hard to conquer somebody that's more than what can be conquered, right? It's hard to take somebody's life who says, I lay it down, right? You cannot be conquered when you're more than a conqueror. Let that be in you. Let that same mind that is in Yahshua also be in you as well. That being said, as always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, Yahshua, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat Shalom, family. Peace. Tadach, Bavakasha, Kwam Yahshua. Appreciate you.